Hello and welcome to Spectrum of Color panel. Thank you so much all for being here today. We have an amazing panel of guests with us today. We will be discussing the intersection of being Black and having autism. My name is Akuya Daniela. I run Town of Tawiah. I'm a social commentator on YouTube and on Instagram. And you can find my in my username here. I'll hand it over to you, Nathan.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Spectrum of Color. It's our first episode. So I'm going to introduce myself. My name's Nathan. I am a content creator on Instagram who talks about being autistic, being bisexual, sober, all the good things. And I'll hand it off to you. Kia.
I'll have these lovely guests introduce themselves in just a moment. But today you should stick around because we'll be discussing and exploring what it's like to actually live with autism as a Black person. And we'll be touching on career, we'll be touching on our educational experiences, family, socializing, friends. And I really can't wait to really delve in and chat with you guys. So I would love if you guys could introduce yourselves. I know everyone always finds it so awkward to come up with an introduction, but you guys are great at this. So Ash, sorry, it's probably the story of your life, but Ash, to go first.
Well, hello. My name is Ash. I run an Instagram account at Shark Tizzy. I write about being Black and being autistic, as well as living with dissociative identity disorder. And I'm really happy to be here today.
Thank you.
Hi, everyone. My name is Khadija, she, they, them. I am a human rights activist and I run my own cross-cultural consultancy. I've been doing that for 23 years. I'm new to the neurodivergent world because my diagnosis is new, but not new to all things fighting the power be in other areas and arenas. And I think for me, why I'm excited for this, because I'm isolated in Australia as a Black autistic and neurodivergent person. So I think that is what I am looking for, is that sense of connection, but the globalness of our shared struggle. But I'm excited to be here. Thank you so much for having me.
Hi, everybody. So my name is Carolyn. I run an Instagram page called Disrupt Your Feed, and I'm a fourth-year medical student. So I kind of started that page when I started my healing journey, and I just wanted to share the things that I'm learning in school and also to help everybody get along on their healing journey. And yeah, so that's pretty much it.
Hi, my name is Chris, and I also go by my username, Tank0601. You can also find me on Instagram. I was most known for being in a video with special books by special kids. Check them out as well. And mostly I just try to get through life and survive, and hopefully to inspire others to not to be afraid of life.
Very relatable, to be honest. And that will be Fatima next.
Hi, my name is Fatima. You can find me on Instagram at Mimo3000. I mostly use my platform to talk about art, talk about the intersection of art and having autism, and how just the creative world is kind of not as open to that, but how we can make it open to autism and neurodivergency and things of that sort. Because as a fashion major, it's something that I feel like is not talked about enough. So yeah, I mostly use my platform to encourage others to take their creativity to the next level, despite whatever outcomes may come from people not being open to them being neurodivergent.
Hi, my name is Yours, pronouns they, them, and I go under the handle Mangoranges, so you can also call me Mangoranges. I am an autism and ADHD mental health advocate and content creator, filmmaker, and I'm currently zooming in from Austria.
Thank you so much. And last but not least, Sunshine.
Howdy. My name is Sunshine, and I am a content creator that talks about motherhood and travel through the lens of sustainability. And now my journey to discovering that I'm autistic and maybe raising super cool autistic kids too.
Even with, I feel recently that I think there's a strong chance that I may have ADHD, and I want to get assessed for it. And I've just noticed that there's so many things that so much negative self-talk that I give myself. And I'm like, oh, why don't you do this? Why are you always procrastinating? I'm so hard on myself. It doesn't make me get it done. You know, in the moments when I pause and say, it's okay, you were tired. It's okay, you were burnt out. It's okay, you were overwhelmed. And this is why you did that. And that's okay. So now we're going to do that. And I know it sounds so sort of like talking to myself like a child, but it's that reparenting thing of being like, I need to be patient with myself. I need to set that tone of being like, if I could have, I would have, you know? And I know so many people, especially a lot of us, we grew up with parents of migrants, or we grew up with parents that have seen really like traumatic issues racially, that they sort of are constantly in this mindset of like, you know, you have to constantly be on the go. You always have to be grinding. If there's any point where you're not moving, it's a failure. And they just kind of put that idea into our mind. So in the odd stage when we just need a break and we need a pause, that voice is still going in our head, like, how dare you, you're lazy, you're da-da. And it's like, you need a break, okay? It's a difficult day. You're also like overwhelmed. You went outside, the weather kept changing. It was very overwhelming. You know, there's so many things. And I just think being patient with ourselves, being that voice to those around us, like Sunshine was saying, I think that really will make a huge difference. And to set the tone of the grace coming from people that look like us as well. I think I noticed a lot of people talking about their experiences, and sometimes I talk to my mixed friends and they will talk about their experience with the white side of their family who, and I think even as you mentioned, like, it's not that they were accepting, but they're just like, they know the rhetoric, they know the language to use just to be patient with it, you know? But it's almost like when it's not as practice in the Black community to have that grace. And I think if we continue practicing that, I think there'll be something really beautiful about it becoming familiar to see brown faces, Black faces that are warm and understanding, and, you know, and are patient. So I'm really looking forward to a time when this is the norm, and there's not so many sort of negative stigma surrounding these conversations. So I wanted to ask, a lot of you can relate to struggling with your educational experiences. I know school is not our favorite place when you're a neurodivergent. It's almost like it wasn't made for us. Share with me some of your experiences of university. We'll start off by talking about what your experience is like, and then we'll go into touching on what could be done to make a difference. I know some of you went to predominantly white institutions. I learned that phrase recently, PWIs, predominantly white institutions. Yeah, do you feel like there was like an overlap with the issues of being in an institution like that?
I definitely agree that there is, it's almost like it's unspoken, but everybody knows it's there. The university, the PWI that I went to, the administration and the administration, it was headed, like the president of the whole thing, is known for being very, very, I don't know how to describe it, but he's sort of involved with like racist organizations. So there's sort of that like unspoken thing of like, oh, well, you're Black, you're not going to get help, you know? And like, I'm a psychology student. Like, this is what I do. Like, I talk about mental health and neurodivergence and the differences in the mind that everybody can have. And even then, there's still, I would see white people that needed help, and they would just get pushed further and further and further along the process, but I would stay in one spot. And there's nothing else that I can put that to. And everybody's like, oh, well, white people love to say, oh, you're playing the race card. But like, what else is it? I'm doing the same process as everybody else trying to get help. Sorry, I'm going on a soapbox. I have a lot to say. But so getting help for autism in that regard was very difficult, and is one of the big reasons why I ended up transferring out of there. So I hope that makes sense. I hope that answers your question.
It does. It just highlights how, especially as a young person, when you're dealing with racism already, and then on top of it, you have autism, and there's just this overwhelming amount of things that you have to deal with. It's like also sometimes it can be difficult. Like I went to sixth form in Bath. I don't know if you guys know where Bath is in England. It's like in the country. It's very, very white area. Like I could count how many Black people were in that town. It was pretty bad. And I know while I was there, it was like I was dealing with the racism and the classism. So it's like I could tell there was something else that I was struggling with socially, but it's like I need to deal with this. I need to deal with this issue first. I need people to stop, calling me out my name and stuff. So it's like I think for a lot of Black people, there's a reason. Not only is our late diagnosis that it's not picked up on by professionals, but also for us, there's so many other things that we were trying to overcome that it's like it's hard to even get to that point where you have the time to address this very important thing that's been making everything else a lot harder. Can any of you else others relate to this kind of experience of sort of being in the education system, feeling like you're constantly being overlooked, and having to do a lot to be heard?
Yeah, I tried to get myself diagnosed when I was 14, because I knew that something was going on aside from, typical racism, classism, the huge. And I had to fight my medical providers. I think I saw maybe 5 or 6 different medical providers before one of them was actually willing to diagnose me. And that wasn't until I was about to graduate high school that they gave me an actual diagnosis. So that was 4 years of my childhood that I spent trying to get resources because I knew that I was struggling in a way that a lot of others at my school weren't struggling. And they waited until the very last minute to actually tell me, or actually put it on paper at least, that there was something that I needed additional support for. And so, as I said, it wasn't until my senior year of high school that I got diagnosed. And even then, it was like, they were like, oh, well, it's way too late to give you an IEP. It's way too late for this, that, and the third. And so I never got those resources in high school, even though I spent the entire high school career knowing that something was happening and being fought on that something wasn't happening. So when I went to college for the first time, I was doing it all on my own. I was 1,700 miles away from home. I was in the widest state in this country. And it was just a very harrowing experience of having to deal with being one of 44 Black people in all of my undergrad, in addition to knowing that I have autism and knowing that I'm going to have to fight providers again in another state to actually give me resources so that I could succeed in school. So my first semester of college went to shit. It was really bad. My second semester was better because I was getting the resources and help that I needed. But the fact that it took them almost 6 months to actually help me, it took them almost 6 months to actually give me resources, to actually even provide me with the names of people that could help me. That was really frustrating because, as Ash said earlier, it's like watching the white students and watching just in general the non-Black students getting bumped ahead of you time after time after time, having to wait 2 months to get an appointment, and then having your friends say, yeah, I went in there last week and they told me I could come in tomorrow. It was really frustrating. So eventually I did have to leave that school. And now that I'm at the school that I'm at, it's a much larger school. They have better resources. And I understand that sometimes there is financial barrier. I understand that and I respect that. But even then, now it's still seeing the way that Black students are treated in the disability assessment office and things of that sort versus the way that non-Black students are treated. It's very frustrating. Yeah.
I'm so glad that you're not in that space that you were in before, because it sounds like hell, honestly. Sorry, Sunshine, you were going to say something as well.
Oh, I think because I have little kids, it makes me think about how school was when I was even younger. What were the signs? What did I miss? And I think about one of the most poignant things for me is that I remember I must have been unable to handle whatever was happening in the class. And after the teacher yelling at me enough, I would just get up and go sit in the back of the classroom on my knees on the floor and rock back and forth crying, just crying and rocking back and forth. And I've always been the tallest, largest person in a room. And so I'm taller than my teachers. But when I look back on the fact that I got in trouble that I was told that I was being disruptive. And like, there's no metric in existence where you would see a child rocking themselves back and forth on the floor in like middle school, like 11-year-olds, like, hey, draw attention to me. Hey, I'm crying in class, you know? And you would go, oh, well, they're just so disruptive. And like, only looking back, do you realize that in order to be able to ignore someone that way or to have that type of cognitive dissidence, there's so much like internalized racism that is going on inside of a person to just miss that. And like, especially in a time where, yeah, I went to like a predominantly white school like my entire life. And what would happen is like around testing time, which the most standardized test, I don't know if they have that in England so much, around testing time, every white kid would get diagnosed with ADHD because it would give you longer time on the test. And so their parents would make sure that they got diagnosed right before testing time. But it was like, so you can see the signs and you're making sure that kids are getting, but you don't see them little brown kids that are like running around or like, you know, crying or like doing a whole bunch of things or like asking questions. And like, especially since autistic kids like to info dump and share information, school was so hard. And I don't know if it's harder for like anyone else because teachers, and my mom was a teacher, so like I love teachers, but like also are the most ignorant people in the entire world. Like, I like literally remember crying myself to like sleep as an adult because I saw the Cars movie and there was a three-wheeled car. And in second grade, I told my teacher I saw a three-wheeled car when I was in England. And they were like, you weren't in England and you didn't see a three-wheeled car. And I was like, wait, what? And like my whole life, I was like, oh, there's no three-wheeled cars because the teacher is so angry. They make you second guess your whole self and like your whole identity in life. And only to later on see a movie and see a three-wheeled car and go, oh, wow, you could have looked this up too. It wasn't Google. You could have asked Jeeves, but like you could have done something, you know what I mean? To find out the information. And like school has always been hard. And it's always this like racial undercurrent that we can't see. Like we're, you know what I mean? Like we can't see in general because we're kids, but also because we're autistic. It's like so icky. So icky.
Yeah. Looking back and in retrospect of those experiences, it's like, oh, so many things were done wrong. And now I'm like really finding my voice and being able to articulate what's not okay. And I just wish that I had the voice that I have now then so I can really let them know, you know. Oh, I had a horrible experience in school. I think they started to get the sense that I was struggling in ways, and it wasn't a comprehension issue though. I understood the work. I was very clever. I was a high achiever, but I was dealing with racism, I was dealing with classism. I just moved to a new town to study. Plus, I was the only working class person in this private school because I just had a scholarship. So there's so many layers to like, you know, the discomfort. And I think once they started to sort of pick up that something was wrong, they spread the class out. So we used to sit on a tiny table, which I'd feel overwhelmed by that. And I think they picked up on that. They spread the class out, and then the teacher would come and sit next to me. And like while he was teaching, he would like really condescendingly like break everything down. I didn't ask for this. No one told me this was, I just showed up in class and I just noticed he would just come and kept, and I was like, I felt so humiliated because I could, the kids are mean and they could see that I was, you know, the one that was getting special help. And if it was something that was agreed, then maybe I'd be comfortable with that. And some people benefited from that, but it wasn't agreed. It just, you know, it was just put onto me. And I think there was that extra layer of, you know, the fact that I was like the Black student and they were like, oh, we're not really sure how to deal with this. And it's like, you've dealt with so many people with autism before. You know how to do this. I don't know why suddenly you don't know how to do it because I have brown skin. Like it doesn't make any sense. So I definitely agree that there's I think it's even like an overtone more so than an undertone of racism that comes out in how we were treated in a lot of these ways, and just the disjustice that we were done, honestly. What do you feel like there could be done? What do you think like could be done in schools to kind of prevent this, essentially? Do you feel like there could be an advisor that's a person of color that is neurodivergent? Do you feel like there's just a need for reform as a whole? I know this is a very difficult and broad, you know, thing to kind of think of, but I just, in case anything has come to mind, because it's difficult to have the answers, and I don't think it's our responsibility as well. I think it's the responsibility of the people who have forced us into the system. But if there's anything that you guys have considered that could be done, I'd be interested to hear your thoughts. What about you, Chris? We haven't heard from you too much. What was your educational experience like? Did you enjoy going to school?
I hated school with a passion.
Yeah, why did you hate school?
Uh, People mostly. I never really got along with anybody, and they never got along with me. I never really had the help that I needed to support myself. Even in like second grade, I was jumped by bullies. It's no that that took a big turn for me. That's when I just decided to be by myself and be alone, and because I don't want that to happen again. That's why I have trouble making friends to this day as well. But I had low self esteem and no self confidence. To this day, I still struggle with that, and that's pretty much all I can think of for right now.
And in a moment like that, that sounds really horrible, and I'm really sorry that happened to you. Was there someone that was anything done in that about that in that moment?
No,
Wow. And did you go to a predominantly white school? Was your school quite diverse? Like, what was that like?
no, that was mostly a public school, but I did bounce from school to school, from like public school to private school, then back to public school. But as I got older, I mostly went to public schools.
I feel like there's just an overtone of like just that no one being there in a lot of our educational experiences. Like it just breaks my heart to think that something as horrible as that can happen. And then it's like, yeah, nothing was done. And we say it so casually, it's like it's not okay. And I really do hope that with the more we have conversations like this, that more things can change, because it's so disturbing to think that we all can relate to just really traumatic experience of being in school. Yeah, it sounds like horrible. I don't know if you touched on a bit about your school experience, Caro. If you feel comfortable, you don't have to share anything.
Yeah, so I kind of white knuckled it through school. I didn't get diagnosed until afterwards, so I can't really talk about like school and how school can help you in that sense. I definitely see the difference in younger generations when they get diagnosed early, and just how much easier it would have been had I had known my diagnosis beforehand. But for me, I think it's just trial and error. Whether you're having the help or not, whether you have tutors, whatever it is, it's still up to you to kind of go take the test and, pass the exams and stuff like that. And it's just trial and error and trying to figure out what works for you and what's going to get you to where you need to go. So I feel like school is a challenge. And I'm grateful for me. Like I studied medicine. Medicine is like one of my special interests. So I enjoyed studying it. So I feel like I wasn't like going uphill versus if I was, I don't know, like a math major. I hate math. I feel like that would have made things a lot more difficult. But I always just kind of tried. And I'm somebody who, like most med students, are like 23, 24. So it's definitely took me some time to get where I'm at, like longer. I'm like 10 years older than most med students. So I've definitely like felt those challenges, but I just never gave up, just keep like persisting and figuring out what works for you. And I think like what we were talking about earlier about like how the educational system can change. I think it just starts with kind of like believing people when they're having difficulties and, like figuring it out. And just, I feel like that's the hardest thing is, yes, the system might work for majority of the people, and then you kind of want to just blame the student and think, oh, the kid is bad or the kid is stupid and stuff like that. And then once we realize like intelligence is a skill, like nobody has a set intelligence. You can learn, you can grow your intelligence level, and it's not inherently a problem with the kid, but more so how they're facing that system. And we start just kind of individualizing education. I feel like that would be the best way. How we get there, I don't know, but I feel like that's the only way to kind of help. Because honestly, like we talked about all the intersexualities in this talk. We talked about race, we talked about sexuality, there's also different neurotypes outside of neurodivergent, outside of ADHD and autism, but like that will also give you troubles in school, So it's just really about individualizing education for everyone who's struggling. But I agree with everything you guys are saying. It definitely is a system that needs some shaping up.
Anyone who works in the education system, if you're watching this, please listen to us and take these into consideration and come up with some structure, because we really need that right now, honestly. Sunshine, you're unmuted. I don't know if you wanted to say something. No, you don't have to. No,
no, really all I was gonna say was that it starts with believing kids. And when you said that, I was like, that's exactly what it is. It starts with literally just believing kids. Like there's no reason why kids want attention that would make you mad. Like it's literally against the psychology of childhood and like life. All they want is approval. So just believing a kid needs help when they ask for help.
Yeah, and you know what really helped me? I don't know who said it. I can't like quote them, but attention-seeking behavior is connection-seeking behavior. So it's kind of like, hey, if somebody is acting up and your go-to is like, oh, they're seeking attention, like, no, they're seeking connection. Let's bond with these kids. Let's figure it out. You know, something's going on.
Always.
Such an amazing point. I know a lot of us may have grown up in very strict families and related to being told off for things. And it's like, I'm a child. How can I have evil intent? Come on. Like, I don't even have the brain capacity to think about doing something malicious. Like, I just need, connection, like you said. So I think that's such an amazing quote, honestly.